gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast, where, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, my boy Matt Hunt. What's poppin', baby?
Hey, Conrad, just over here enjoying being 6 feet tall.
Wow.
You're over 6 feet, right?
Very slightly.
That's all that matters. That's all I care about.
I don't know what's going on with you guys. Conrad has somehow never realized that I'm taller than him, and you think I'm a giant. So, like,
I don't think you're a giant. I said 6'2".
You said 6'4" to
I
start.
said 6'4", and I realized very quickly that was ridiculous. And I was like, I think it's more like 6'2".
What's going on here?
All
But you're like
I
6'1",
know-
right?
What's that?
You're like 6'1", right?
Just under, very slightly.
All I know is Berkey.
Just say 6'1". You round
Berkey.
up.
I mean, exactly, round up.
you need to get down the pip cab and drop down and give us 40.
All right, we'll worry about that later. Hunt, if you get your mic a little bit closer, and Lamanna, get yours as far away as possible. Christ
How's that?
almighty. Yeah,
Is that good?
Yeah, we hear you just fine now.
Perfect. All right.
The tort.
You don't want to hear me talking shit all day?
I do. I just, my ears are bleeding.
I mean, you said act like it's violating you.
Right. That doesn't apply to Italians.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I didn't know.
That's right.
I thought that was understood.
I have an
generally
Italian
implied.
filter on my setup here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just click that. My volume just goes way down. I sound like everybody else.
It makes your hand gestures go down too.
Hey,
I'm going to
paisano.
tie my hands. If you tie my hands in the
Stop
chair,
you from
I
going
can't
like
talk.
that.
What am I going to do? It's crazy.
That's great.
Oh, man. We have a fun one today. It's very spicy.
Spicy, huh?
Spicy
Well,
meatball.
It's not that spicy.
It'll
Like,
get spicy.
Let's not oversell. But I'm in the muck again, so we're gonna talk about that spot for Strat Chat.
I mean, you might be in the muck after this Will Jaffe tweet that just went out. Did you see that?
I saw. I don't understand.
I don't understand at all, because what do you have in common with any of those other people?
I think Doug went after all of them.
Okay, but they're all scumbags and you're not. So like,
Well,
Welcome back, Scott.
I don't think there was room for Bryn Kenny on the poster.
Maybe
so
not, yeah.
I feel like he had.
I feel like it. Just looking at that image, I was like, which is the odd one out here? You know, it's like that's kind of insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, Will's trying. He's shooting his shots. He Once Upon a Time was funny.
Yeah, they can't all be bangers. You know, they can't all be
Can't
bangers.
all be bangers. When you're fucking up till dawn 6 nights in a row in Poughkeepsie, sometimes you draw some correlation. No, I think he's just trying to be funny. It's fine. Yeah, me, Postle, same. Really, what are we talking about here? But yeah, the big order of business to discuss today, as we kind of mentioned yesterday, was that there was a meeting in Farmers. What is it? Farmers
Farmers
Branch?
Branch.
Farmersonly.com. Is that
Only farms.
it was? Yes, there was a big meeting of the minds in Farmers Only, Dallas, Texas, where they were trying to unite poker players and single women, all under one umbrella. No, Farmers Branch, Texas was hosting I guess this is a town hall meeting?
City council meeting.
City council meeting?
I read that's what it was. I don't
What's
know
the difference? Does anybody know?
I mean,
Is there a difference?
don't ask me about how American
I've never been.
government
Yeah, I mean,
works.
I would assume a town hall meeting is just going to discuss, like,
It's like my
certain
HOA
topics.
meetings that I never go
Or
to.
like a city council meeting is literally like, there's going to be a vote. After,
Yeah,
for,
I think
for some
like the
sort
city,
of measure.
the city attorney will be at the city council meeting.
Okay.
And
Not the town hall, though.
I think so. Yes.
Right. From my understanding, city councilors, they have 5 specific, in this case, I think it was 5 specific people who vote on a specific thing that they're going to either do or not do.
Right.
And town hall is like, we're just going to discuss a bunch of stuff.
Right.
You know?
Wow. Could you imagine anything more unbearable than a town hall meeting?
I'm going to one after the pod.
Maybe a town hall meeting with Doug Polk. Like that might be
Right.
worse than average, you know?
Actually, for entertainment's sake, I will say.
I mean, this was pretty entertaining.
This was pretty good, but they were only allotted 3 minutes each. And then they were out. And,
Imagine if they weren't.
And their time time speaking was directed to the board mostly to sway votes, right?
Right.
Now I've seen some clips of town hall meetings in my day. They get a little bit more ruckus to them, a little more
they
unhinged.
get pretty spicy.
Yeah, imagine just a debate forum where Karen from fucking middle of nowhere Texas clutching her pearls and Douglas K. Polk, the supreme leader, putting her in her logical place as she argues that gambling is for the devils and he's going to ruin her city.
Yeah, what's that quote? I can't remember who it's from, but the quote is the best argument against democracy is a conversation with the average voter. Like this kind of
great.
meeting is like a great example of that. Like you see the people that come out at these meetings and you're like, wow, these are the people that vote in this country. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I would love to just see gloves off, no time allotment. They're just allowed to shout at one another. Just like, let's really get in the weeds here.
There's been a couple where there's been like actual physical fights, haven't there? Like I'm sure there's been a few that descended into violence.
I'm sure of it. This wasn't a town hall, but the one that recently comes to mind is when that guy was getting arraigned and he just fucking, as the judge was saying guilty, he just charged her and jumped over the bench.
I saw that.
Right.
That was fucking wild, man.
This one
Stay safe
stayed
out there,
relatively
kids.
calm. They're just talking about poker. It wasn't like, abortion or something more heated.
Yeah.
They could have
that
gotten
picture of the old lady like yelling at Doug is like,
it's incredible.
Fantastic. What a great piece of photography.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
Wow, I didn't.
I went to bed at 10 o'clock last night. And I was very tired. I was like, I'm gonna pack it in for the night. I'm gonna go to bed early. I'm gonna wake up early. I'm gonna get after the things and do all the stuff. And then someone sent me the link, and I was like, this isn't gonna be worth watching. But for the sake of the pod, I'm gonna do a little research. I'll spend 10 minutes on this. No, an hour and 20 minutes later, I'm listening to Karen number 6 fucking demonize everything about poker and just really speak to the Republic of Texas and how morally true that they are, and they don't want to harm the fabric of their society. I'm with you, Karen. I'm with you. Fucking burn them all. We're
they're
terrible,
all
deplorable
Karen.
people.
We don't care what their real names are. They're all Karen.
Sarah's and Hannah's.
Yeah, Karen, John. No, but it was compelling, and honestly, it was very eye opening to me from a standpoint that has nothing to do with poker in and of itself. We were kind of discussing this pre-pod about like the strategy that you should take into something like this, and it's just you don't have a logical conversation with somebody whose vote you're trying to sway.
And that's the sad thing.
That doesn't go anywhere.
That makes me so
That
sad.
doesn't go anywhere. I mean, come on, like all you have to do. All right, I've let up enough. Let's actually listen to some of the clips from the town hall meeting. So first, Doug was the one who was afforded the ability to speak first. He gave a nice 3-minute long speech. We have like a 40-second clip that I think was probably the most impactful part of it.
I guess I want to just say here about this attack on poker players in general, like they're bad people. I'll tell you what, some of the best people I've met in my life are poker players. I started my career... I started my career with $10, and I turned it into millions of dollars by becoming one of the best in the world. And poker gave me that opportunity. And I'm tired of people attacking poker players like they're some kind of lowlifes. They're good people, and we stand together.
Now, outside of whether or not I agree with the strategy he employed, I thought that this was a nice side of Doug to see, where he was a little bit more human. This wasn't the breaking news version that was unleashing a scandal on all of us.
It'd be funny if the rebuttal was just one of his videos. You could choose any one.
What do you mean?
And one of his videos, you're like, this is the guy that just said that.
Using the fake cry?
I mean, it is what it. I actually think like what he's trying to attempt here is a big deal and a notable pursuit. I know that there's a coordinated effort between himself, Roy Choi, who was also mentioned in the meeting, Isaac at Champions, as well as some other like owners who are good faith and on the up and up. And they're really trying to expand poker in a very safe and legal way. Now, of course, all of this comes at the benefit of their business. And I don't think that really even needs to be stated because it should be understood. But what I find to be interesting was the strategy that was employed in I guess like, you know, petitioning to this group. I don't think the teary-eyed I turned $10 into millions is really the appeal to emotion that you're kind of going for here. And it was an ongoing theme throughout the course of the meeting, where everybody that was like pro poker was trying to change the minds of everyone in that room of what poker players are and what the industry of poker is. So they were trying to undo decades of corruption, seediness, backroom type of games, all in a matter of minutes, and basically say like, look, we're on the up and up. We're very comparable to chess. This is a mind sport. You should be thrilled to have us in this room. And I think that that's the wrong approach, especially in a conservative, red Christian community like Farmers Branch, where it's abundantly clear, and we'll hear this, you know, now from a few of the women who spoke. They don't care what you do in your own personal life, and that's pretty reasonable.
The only thing abundantly clear to me in these videos is that they weren't dropping those signs that said no card rooms. They
true.
were not coming down.
Yeah, that's
Clutching
fact.
those signs.
That's fact. So let's hear from the first woman who spoke. I don't know her name.
I was thinking about, I did speak at the planning and zoning meeting. I said, this is moving too fast. Dallas is not a conservative city. Farmers Branch is. Dallas is in litigation, been in litigation with this issue for quite some time. Why don't we think about it, study it, before we get into litigation? Litigation is not cheap. The city is familiar with litigation. You've had it in the past. Every city has, but you try to avoid it. Sir, that's why we hire you as a city attorney, to give the advice. We don't want to make assumptions because we know what assume means. It's important. So why don't we wait to see what happens in the litigation involving Dallas already existing facilities versus rushing in?
Now, it's tough to actually hear her point because she's clutching her pearls so fucking tight that it actually restricts, you know, her airway quite a bit. But I think that there's like some validity in the point that she's making, in the sense that basically what she was referring to is Dallas, or parts of Dallas, I guess, have passed. So the way this all works is very convoluted. This meeting was actually just to speak about or vote on whether or not they could actually rezone for the card room business. Had nothing to do with the actual legality of it all. So they went out of their way to speak of like, oh, okay, well, if this zoning even passes, then there's going to be another hurdle of whether or not there are any legal issues attributed to it. But I think that like Doug and everybody who's coordinating these efforts are pretty confident on the legality of it all. It's the zoning aspects of it. So, you know, she basically speaks to the fact that like, since TCH has entered the market in Dallas, which apparently is actually quite close to Farmers Branch, I guess it's just like the county over.
And there's two of them there.
2 TCHs?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other one must be in North Dallas, I would assume.
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, I'm not positive either. But anyway, there's a TCH, I believe, that's very close to Farmers Branch. And I think she mentioned that, where she was basically saying, like, we'll just go there kind of thing. But the big thing that she was trying to get to is that once things are set into motion, they're very hard to undo. And apparently Dallas has been in litigation for years trying to undo the precedents they set by allowing TCH to enter the market. I would imagine that a lot of why they're trying to get it undone now is pressure from the lobbyist at Choctaw. Also, you know, they're more conservative residents that are not pro-gambling, I would imagine are pushing a lot of heat their way as well. But it's fascinating to me in 2024. I think we forget, like, I don't speak to women like this. No, sorry, that came out wrong. that implies that that implies that like she's a bad person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't come in contact with very many people who think this way.
Right.
You know, my life is centered around the gambling industry.
Live in Las Vegas.
Right.
Like,
I mean, casinos mostly. I hang around poker players. We live in Las Vegas. You know, you don't really come in contact with people. And I'm sure that when we were growing up, matter of fact, I'm positive when we were growing up, there were a lot of people that surrounded us who had that sort of attitude. Because I remember even when we would fuck around in high school and play home games, how terrified I was of gambling debts. It was like, you know, a lot of the stuff that gets stuffed down your throat as a kid, like, oh, if you smoke pot, that's a gateway drug. You'll be doing crack in no time. You know, it's kind of the same thing. Like, oh, if you gamble for pennies, then, you know, the first thing you're going to do is start running up sports. And I knew kids that were like, you know, Bina and Steele and all those guys. They were running up these sports bet debts in the hundreds of dollars. And it was like, these guys are going to get their fucking kneecaps broken. You know, that shit's real. Right? So like that fear was instilled in me, very likely by a lot of conservative religious.
Shout out to Bina and Steele, by the way.
Right, yeah.
A few more nicknames out there for the
you know.
for the crew.
Yeah, you know, you got to get them out there. But like, you know, it was a terrifying thing, and it's eye opening to me, at least as an outsider looking in, to experience people who have just carried these. I don't want to say virtues because I disagree with them, and then that would be a disallow. But have carried this philosophy forward throughout their entire life. There's Caitlin put a tweet out. And honestly, I think that this summarized the whole thing. She said something to the effect of like, you know, we're all rooting for you or whatever, but this woman ate. And it's just like 15 seconds of this lady just letting him have it.
If all of y'all gone into one of the houses, have you gone over there? Have you looked at it? Have you spent your time there? Did you take your wife with you? Would you invite your pastor to go with you? Would you invite your church members to go with you to go over there? And would you ask them to go frequent that place? If all of y'all gone into one of the houses, have you?
Oh, it's unreal.
And I think Guapo made a pretty good point off air that's. And you know, I think this is where we can kind of get into the discussion of the strategy of it all. But like, she's talking about this like it's a crack den, and you know, Guapo was kind of mentioning like, have they been in a bar? You know, like, are you taking your pastor to a bar? There's plenty of fucking. I'm confident without googling, Conrad, you can do your CSA, but like, I'm confident there are bars in Farmers Branch.
Yeah.
And I also said I'm sure there's places where you can buy guns and ammunition and things of this sort.
Well, that's totally different conversation.
That's part of the religion.
It goes back to my original argument. What I was saying in pre-production that, and again, I guess you guys can. Everybody has different opinions. That Doug should have kind of preemptively should have stricken that if they're going to argue against this, to not use it as a moral integrity thing, to not do it based off of, you know, crime or that poker players are these seedy bad people. Instead, do it with like stats, like back it up with some type of information. Because if you're really worried about the moral integrity of your community, you'd be going week after week after bars, after places that, like I said, where you can buy guns or anything that you consider seedy. But I don't know. That was just my opinion.
I mean, guns are in the amendments. So,
they definitely don't think guns are seedy.
Right. I don't think that qualifies. But
yeah.
I think your point is relatively valid with alcohol, specifically with bars. I think that the issue is that like all of this is framed around social norms, right? And for hundreds of years, drinking has been socially acceptable. Gambling has always been an underground seedy type of thing. What were you going to say, Conrad? I know I cut you off.
No, go on.
So I hear what you're saying, and I think that the issue is like, first of all, we should make something abundantly clear. Like Doug and everybody else who's organizing out in Texas, they're trying their damnedest. You know, we were in touch with Sam, who'd previously been one of the early founders of TCH. He then opened his own card club, and he was trying to get into Dallas as well. I think he's now transitioned into helping them litigate all of this, and you know, I'm sure he knows a lot of what's going on. It's a massive uphill battle. I don't know that there was going to be like, this is to me, that meeting yesterday was like kind of for show, in the sense of, okay, well, we're going to keep trying this, and we're going to keep trying to rally the troops and generate support, right? Like, there were a lot of people there that were behind Doug that showed up to say, like, this isn't what you guys are implying it to be. The house doesn't always win. Like, it's mono a mono type of sport. It's not
got 20% of the vote. Got one person. That's true. Got one person.
That's true.
I mean, he starts with one.
Right.
Every city council has one person in the game. We all know this.
True.
That's true. I mean, that's probably true. But my greater point is that, like, for discussion purposes here, we'll pick apart the strategy because it's fun, and that's the way our brains work, and we enjoy talking strat and stuff like that. But the practicality of this all is, I don't think anything was going to sway these people, right? Like, it's just an uphill battle. Like, no matter what happens, Doug's probably not winning here.
I'm sorry. You're trying to unravel years and years and years of bias opinions toward poker, and honestly, they don't see too much fucking good shit happening in the news when they see Houston
it's
poker
ingrained
stuff.
in them that gambling brings crime and drugs and prostitution, and poker is a form of gambling, and it's all lumped in together. So it's just like, before you know it, it's just like, you just got hookers all over the street and people doing heroin on the sidewalk, and our beautiful town is now just completely destroyed because Doug wanted to bring this card room here.
I also think
that's how they think.
You kind of fight against, in a setting like that as well, there's a real social element to it, where all these people who are anti the card room, they are all there because they have this value system that, whether or not they actually follow what they say they follow is another thing, but like, they have a value system that being there and agreeing with all these other people, if we don't want a card room, is reinforcing that.
Yes.
So what you need to do is convince them that it's okay according to their system of values for them to vote in favor of a card room.
Precisely.
Because what they're feeling is, if I vote for a card room, I'm a bad Christian.
Yeah.
I'm not a good person if I vote for this. And everyone in that room is feeling that, or everyone who believes in that value system is feeling that. And if you go against that and you say, well, this is what we want, but they still feel like their value system is telling them you can't vote against this, you're never going to get anywhere. Because as long as they feel like their value system doesn't allow them to vote for it, there's no progress you can ever make. So you have to argue according to their values, and you have to say, look, if you actually believe in freedom, shouldn't you want people to be able to do the things that they want to do for fun? Like, shouldn't you want this to happen?
I don't think you can approach them like that, because like, you can't fight fire with fire, kind of. You have to like appeal to them. Berkey was saying earlier, it was just like,
well, Hunt is saying that he's correct. I think the example he just gave is maybe a little off the mark.
I mean, maybe not. Like, the freedom thing is like a different issue.
Well, because their response to that will just be like, yes, you're free to do as you please, just not in my town.
Yeah.
Right. So
that just sounds like hypocrisy to me. But
it is, and that's what Guapo
sounds like. It just
and
is.
that's what Guapo's saying also. But the issue is the reason why these aren't very compelling arguments is exactly what you just spoke to, because they're very united in their stance, right? They're very united in all of the downside to this thing that has been demonized by their belief system. And I think that when you try to either point out the flaws in their belief system or the contradictions or the errors of their way, all you're going to be met with is resistance. And at the end of the day, you're trying to win votes, right? You're not trying to win a logic debate. Because
instead, just try to tell them how they can line their pockets.
Exactly. You need to find the thing that is greater than the system itself. What is the number one thing that will incentivize them to deviate from their system, to contradict their system time and time and time again? And
the city lining the city attorney's pockets with money.
Yeah. How present to them how this card room or bringing poker here can bring value to the community.
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, like, this is a crazy idea. But the way that this gets passed is if they can find a way to have the church and the card room unite.
Yeah, it needs to be the Christian case for gambling.
Right.
I mean, they got bingo.
Catholics do it all the time.
Why
They
God
got a
says
lot of
gambling
bingo.
is okay.
Right.
That's what I mean. Like, if it turned into a nonprofit that was helping to funnel money into the church and expand the community from within, And then, they just found ways, nonprofits pay salaries to
Honestly,
people. So.
I think the way to do this is he doesn't set up a card room. He just sets up a church. And then sets up a poker game inside the church.
You go,
Completely agree.
And the even better thing is he doesn't have to pay taxes if he sets up a church.
Exactly.
God forbid we tax the church.
Now we're on to something. Actually, we should go down and do that.
Let's get it poppin' ministries.
Card rooms in churches.
Now I imagine
Church of Matt Berkey of Latter-day Saints.
I imagine that this isn't just viable to do. I'm sure that they have ordinances against this.
I don't know, man. I think you could pull that off. I think somebody with the right legal knowledge could pull that off.
I wonder. Obviously, like we're speculating a ton. We don't know a lot of what's going on there. These guys have been fighting litigation and all this stuff for years. So like we're just kind of like throwing harebrained ideas. But I wonder. So they're not zoned, or they're able to like keep dug out because of zoning laws and things like that. I wonder if they're able to cherry pick like what types of churches are built. So in other words, if a Church of Scientology wanted to come in and open up, I feel like they couldn't.
Yeah, I feel like they wouldn't either.
I feel like they just couldn't, and it would be a very similar thing where they would have to challenge it at some sort of meeting like this.
Hold on, let me see if there's any mosques in town.
Seriously.
I think you're probably right, but I also think like, how can that possibly be following the Constitution,
bro?
This is what baffles me about living in America.
Well, we're
right?
young enough that we're still contradicting everything that we've ever stood for.
You have this whole big document of like, this is the sacred thing. We're going to build everything off of this one document from 200 years ago. And then suddenly 90% of the laws in this country are completely contradictory to
freedom
it.
of religion, but that's my religion.
Yeah, freedom
not
of
your
one
religion.
Well, also, we gave ourselves all an out. We're like, this is the law of the land. This is what we're going to follow. But at the end of the day, we're going to leave it up to the states.
Yeah, the law of the land, but also states' rights.
Right. So the states will just be like, all right, well, we'll succeed if we have to.
Yeah.
Remember
and now you've got like this whole thing where like states are passing laws that says you can't pass a law that does a thing. So it's like they're trying to have a law so that nobody in the future can ever make a law that says the opposite of the thing that we want. And it's like, I don't know what the hell's going on anymore.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place with this one because I kind of understand and agree with the pearl clutchers here. Like when they moved to this community, when they built their homes and decided to raise their family in this particular district and everything of the sort, I assume anyway, I've never been, but I would imagine the demographic is very like-minded. So there's probably a lot more of Karen A and B than there are of Joe Schmo who wants to build a VFW card room, right? And then also Joe Schmo has other options. There's one just a few miles down the road. They play, Doug had mentioned that he got invited to a free roll at the Moose Lodge, just straight out of fucking Rounders.
Why would... So I obviously don't know all the logistics of this either, but like it seems like he's chosen the most conservative place in the entire state to try to open up. Like isn't there like a better place or it would be easier to open?
Well, I think because they're not in litigation and Dallas is, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay. It's probably just a really good location, like safe.
Well, it can't just be that. Like there's so much red tape that obviously you're going to try to find places that are both good location and lower barrier of entry. And this place seems like a pretty high barrier of entry.
Right.
I would assume you want to be in an affluent part of town as well, right?
Well, most of these places are in storefronts. So you want to find some place that has like a strip mall or something of the sorts. And they were talking about the mall district or something of that nature. So it sounds like they had a place that was prime for it. But he wasn't the first one. Roy Choi and Isaac tried to get champions in here in 2022, I believe. And they had mentioned two others. They didn't mention them by name, but they had mentioned two others who had attempted in the past and failed. So clearly, like this is a prime real estate type of place. And also it's one of those things where it's like, if Dallas isn't an option because they're currently in litigation, so they're certainly not going to be.
So they have to go outside the city limits.
Yeah, you're trying to set new precedents, right? And I could be wrong about the litigation thing because it sounds like if they're in litigation, then that means the precedent was already set, and you could probably attempt to open shop, but it also probably means that you're going to have to jump through a lot more hoops and be under a lot more scrutiny. So I'm not really sure. Let's hear the final message that they sent Mr. Supreme Leader out on a high note with.
My biggest issue is if somebody went to this poker parlor and came out penniless and goes home, then into his wife and children, penniless, then whose fault is it? It's his fault, and it's our fault for being accomplices to his demise. So we don't want that. We don't want to shoulder that responsibility. Mr. Doug Polk, although you're a very nice man, you can pack your bags and go home.
I just don't think you're swaying that woman's opinion ever.
Pack your bags and go home.
She's like Padma on Top Chef. Like when you lose, she's like, pack your knives and go.
If she only knew about the truth of whether or not Doug is a very nice man. If she only knew.
Yeah, the memes have been flying for sure since yesterday's town hall. Waxman quote tweeted Doug's speech, and he said something to the effect of, I don't even want to read it because I know it's just like such a sarcastic tone. It just looks like I'm the one being petty. Like, I'm actually rooting for Doug in this instance.
Yeah.
But basically he goes, check it out, guys. Our hero Doug Polk's defending our honor. He's definitely not trying to appeal to the government to allow him to line his own pockets and make even more money. Thanks, Doug. Go get him.
You know what occurs to me is I think that if you're Doug, you need to not be the face of what you're trying to do. I think Doug needs to get somebody
Spokesman.
somebody who
Yeah.
would be more relatable to the people he's talking to. Like, get Joe, the recreational player, who is a guy who would play at your poker room in Farmers Branch if it existed.
Right.
Get the pastor.
Yeah. Right. No, someone's
the
like, I
pastor
go
on
to church
board.
every day. I go to church every Sunday, but I also play poker.
Don't be the 35-year-old young guy from outside of town coming in to lecture these people about why they need a
They don't
poker
like
room.
outsiders.
Get a local guy
Yeah.
to be your avatar in this conversation.
I agree that he's not going to sway anybody, but he at least is an authority in this space. I think, like, ultimately, if you really want to win over votes, this is like no other, or this is very similar to any other political campaign, right? You need you need a face that appeals to the people that you're trying to sway, like you said, but it's not just like some random Joe. It's
somebody
whoever they look up to.
Get somebody
right? It's Jordan Peterson.
Get somebody in their 50s. Get a poker player over the age of 50.
But that doesn't matter because he's still just a stranger to them. You need somebody with clout.
Somebody
right?
in
like
the community that like
a local business owner. Yeah,
somebody right.
I don't even think
people know.
No. You need somebody that they like look up to and admire and like would expect to do things. Not only do things based off of like what their expectations are and do right by them, but also take it a step further and like make it this wild success that's going to bring traffic to this area and money and things like you need like a Tony Robbins.
There's only one for this job.
Who?
Mark Cuban.
No. Mark Cuban is the most liberal Texan of all. He's a Yinzer.
These guys probably fucking hate Mark Cuban.
Of course they hate Mark.
He's not
Cuban.
He's not even a Texan.
No, he's a Yinzer.
Yeah.
They loathe Mark Cuban.
Go back to the church then.
Yeah, just get a pastor, man. Just find some poker playing pastor.
I think you need somebody with like Mark Cuban's profile that is more on the conservative side of things and can speak their language and speak to their incentives. Like, because you're asking them to disrupt their community according to their value system.
Imagine Helmuth just shows up with his Bitcoin Latinum hat on.
Not Helmuth.
What about Ted Cruz?
No. Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz could possibly be the guy who sways them. Like if Ted Cruz were to open.
Ted Cruz play poker?
He does.
He does.
He's been on Poker Go.
Oh, that's right.
Multiple times.
With Helmuth. So if Helmuth and Ted Cruz were to go into a partnership to open a poker room in Farmers Branch, Texas, I think it's like 33% to get past.
Helmuth comes in with his tracksuit
No.
on and his Bitcoin Latinum hat.
Helmuth does not get to go to the meeting.
He's not there.
I think if Helmuth and Cruz together, it's like 33%. If Ted Cruz just comes in on his own and says we're doing a poker room, they're all like, yes, leader, yes. We're doing a poker room for you, Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz could get this done. He's the man for the job.
He can't get anything else done, but he can get this done.
Correct. He could definitely get this done.
Do Texans still love him after he left during their snowy season?
The snowy season. Where did he go? Cancun.
He
went to Cancun. They got like an
vacation to Cancun.
I mean,
when it was like
to be fair, Texas was
state was
open during COVID, so it wasn't like they probably felt like he was running from anything.
Well, he was running from the winter storms at that time.
Oh, I thought it was
wasn't
COVID thing.
It wasn't
No,
COVID.
it was a snowy season.
It was when Texas had the big freeze where they had power outages all across the state.
Yeah.
Everybody had power outages and was freezing to death, and he went to fucking Mexico for it.
Oh, you want him to sacrifice his life for the benefit of everyone else?
That's what
God
being
forbid.
a politician is supposed to be.
God forbid.
Come on, buddy. Did you watch this town hall meeting?
I'm just saying.
All right, I don't know that there's a lot more to talk about here. It's an unfortunate day for Texas poker, I guess. But, I don't think these guys are going to stop trying. I'm sure that there are more meetings on the docket. I actually thought they did a great job for what it's worth. I thought the man that was presenting on their behalf, who was very clearly not sharp when it came to poker, did a great job of answering questions, did a very good job of knowing his shit, and also being honest. And I think that that's really important to highlight, because he wasn't like, he was answering questions very honestly and not trying to lawyer them. And what I mean by that is, like, they were asking him questions about, like, well, will this set a future precedent? Or they were leading questions, obviously. And he didn't try to duck them. He was like, yes, of course. Like, if we do this, then the precedents will be set. And technically other people could do similar models, yada, yada, yada. So I find all this to be very fascinating, because it crosses over into a world that I don't care much about and I don't have a lot of respect for, which is politics. That's unfortunate in the sense that, the less interested we as the general populace become in these sort of things, the more often the wool's just going to be pulled over our eyes, and we're going to have to suffer through whatever the fuck it is that the 3% of people in this country who do give a shit decide to vote on. So, maybe for a brief moment in time, I was inspired a little. Wanted to actually get out there and educate myself on all the things political. And then I realized, what's the point?
I could see you in the back of that meeting with a sign that says, open the card room.
No.
Yes, card room.
This may be a flaw of mine, but I truly do not think that protest is effective.
Okay, we're not going there. Right now, we are not going into that topic. No. I am vetoing that immediately.
And I should rephrase. It's not that I think the idea behind it is not effective. I think, like, as an individual, like when you frame your world around that, it becomes very challenging.
We're still not going into it.
I don't care.
Oh, I know.
Like, what? I don't know. Whatever. I'm not going to get into it.
If you were going to say another point, that was going to be like going into it. So I was going
to say something about myself.
Oh, okay.
I was just basically going to say, like,
I was getting ready to reinforce for a third time that we weren't going to go.
I was just basically going to say, like, the amount of man hours that are necessary to impact change are.
That's a lot of
It's a lot.
You gotta do more. Tiananmen Square.
You gotta do more than print out a fucking no poker room sign. Although that lady got a lot of traction because she was like prime seating and was just like right in the middle of the frame. Kept
I just love the screenshot I took that with Jake's Abdallah just in the middle of the three signs. I can't wait to post it on Twitter.
I think you're a little late.
It's out there?
I'm pretty sure it's out. Seriously, put a whole video.
All right, well then I'm done. I'm off that idea.
You're a little tardy. It's okay.
What's next?
Barry Carty memed it as he always does.
Barry is really making a run at that Twitter Personality of the Year award.
If he doesn't get it, it's a crime against the GPIs.
Every day he's out there with the memes in the meme streets.
Imagine that's all it took. Like
that's amazing.
What's that from?
It was Britney Spears. Leave Britney alone when she was going through her conservativeship. And they were trying to get her freed.
There's so many memes now. I don't even recognize half of the formats these days.
Oh, she's free.
Landon is the guy who knows all the meme formats, I'm sure.
He does. He's Zoomer and millennial adjacent. The kid has crossed over. All right, let's get into some strat chat. I have a hand that had me on Raging Tilt yesterday.
Raging Tilt.
I was so fucking mad, and I think I was just mad at the deck. But I think I was also mad that I wasn't like super confident in my line. Mainly because I knew it was exploitative in real time, but also it was one of those scenarios where it's just like things were happening where the question just kept coming up of what the fuck is going on here? And those hands frustrate me more than anything else, I think. Obviously because I'm at top of range by the end of it. And I'm just like kind of backed into a corner, but let's cover it in the muck. All right, so this hand happened yesterday at 100-100 in Bobby's room. It's gonna start off three ways, but it's very insignificant. So the hijack's gonna open, low jack's gonna open, small blind's gonna defend. I call with king jack off, and we see a king 8 deuce rainbow board. There's actually 1,000 in the pot because of the ante. I check. Low jack is going to bet 200 into 1,000. Very small size, but like happens. I decided to go for a check raise. I don't check raise these boards often enough, I don't think, or at least I didn't think I did. And at this depth, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is just more of a pure call spot. I'm not really sure. The way that I tend to approach these like range bet boards is that I will build a more polarizing strategy, but maybe expand a little bit on the value. So basically, like I think king jack is about bottom of what we could check raise for value. I think king queen is like a no-brainer check raise, as we never have ace king, given that it was a squeeze spot pre, and then everything else will just be like 2 pair plus. Then like your bluffs, you're just basically gonna find like backdoor hands that wrap in some sort of capacity. So like your 9
jack of hearts, 10 jack of spades.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're 3-betting a lot of these, so you have to kind of reach a little bit. I think it's more of like your 1 gappers. So like your 9-7 suiteds, jack 9 suiteds, maybe hands that have like some blocking properties over the king. So yeah, like maybe like a hand like jack 9 of hearts, for example, would be a good one.
There's probably going to be like a lot of sex of hearts and spades as well at this depth, right?
Yeah, of course.
Set blockers.
Stuff
like that.
That would be the next place. I guess I was talking more about the reaches.
Yeah, maybe
I think those are the more obvious ones.
Maybe a little bit of 8x too, just coverage.
Right.
The deeper you get, the more coverage you're going to need.
Yeah, you'll need like 8x with backdoors, I suppose. So like over under would probably be a good one. Like if you ever have maybe queen 8 of spades, that might be, or queen 8 of diamonds might be a good one.
Yeah, the stuff that can get like called by a worse 8, but also has a backdoor as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of handy.
Yeah, but
in this formation, sorry, Matt.
Yep.
In this formation, aren't you calling a lot with suited broadways versus what is this +1?
Yeah, but no.
So like when you see jack 10 of hearts here, you're 3-betting that?
Oh, that's pure squeeze at this depth.
For sure. Wow, I didn't know that.
This formation. Yeah, in squeeze spots like this, your suited broadways are basically almost always going to play pure squeeze.
Oh, that's right. You get a call from the small blind. Okay.
Yeah. But even heads up, like
even
jack
heads
10
up, I would
suited is
3-bet
going
a
to be
lot.
high frequency 3-bet at this depth.
Yeah,
because you're able to target, like you're able to get king jack off to fold and stuff when you 3-bet big here at depth. So really good to 3-bet jack 10.
Yeah, I'd probably 3-bet those types of hands like half the time, give or take.
Yeah.
And then my offsuit ones, I would mostly play pure call.
Yeah, you don't
like,
want to
I don't
a lot of offsuit.
I think like ace jack
How
would
many
be.
bigs deep are you? Like 3,000 or something?
No,
insane?
only 300.
Oh, 300. Okay,
Yeah.
I missed a 0. Okay.
Yeah, so like 2,800 big blind, or sorry, 280 big.
This is actually pretty shallow for your game.
Yeah,
Correct,
this isn't as deep as I thought it was.
Early on in the session,
Okay.
I haven't even reloaded yet for 100K, so we're still out there on a limb. So I did choose a check raise, and because of the way I was constructing / with what I'm targeting, I went for the small size. This may be incorrect. I could see a world where like this is just 3E, based off the fact that you're basically choosing like 2-pair plus type of hands, and then a lot of nothing.
I feel like small's kind of good. Like
my idea was like you're just going to target a lot of nothing, but maybe it's bad because like he's just going to peel all of his backdoor stuff.
But I think that's good. That's why you check raise king jack, right?
Right.
Like, I think if you were to go with a big size, like he makes it 200, you make it like 1,600 or something.
Mm-hmm.
You're going polar enough that I don't know if it works, because it's hard for you to have enough value to make like queens or jacks think about folding if you go really big like that, but it's also it becomes a lot harder to check raise thin with like this type of hand when you go really big. So I kind of like 800 as your size.
Well, if we go really big, I think king jack's out.
Yeah, but then it's also like, how do you, like when you go really big on the flop and you have to be really polar, it just becomes harder to have coverage.
Yes.
Becoming harder to have coverage is dangerous at depth, basically.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess the counter to not having coverage is this board is so dry. There isn't a lot you need to cover.
Yeah, that's probably true.
You're kind of just like trying to stack him whenever he has a king, or eventually get him to fold out his worst one pairs.
I do know in a lot of MTT spots this plays as a small check raise, but I'm not sure about how it would do at depth.
Yeah, so interesting. Anyway, I like you defaulted to the smaller size because I probably am going to be more linear than maybe theory would suggest. Basically knowing that like this probably shouldn't necessarily it's probably still a range bet even though it's three ways.
What does the wizard say?
We haven't gotten that far yet, but we'll get there. So I check raised to 800 smaller size, and he 3-bet clicks basically, making it 1800. This to me felt like not a thing. 3-bet for maybe slightly larger, I could see being reasonable, like 2400.
Yeah, it doesn't serve a lot of purpose at this depth.
Yeah, we're just too deep for a click to make sense.
Yeah, I mean when you're check raising like slightly more linear and not super polar here, the small click doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything to your range. It doesn't put you in many tough spots. Like most of your check raise range just peels here at this depth.
Right. It just basically gives him the final set. Like, it gives him additional realization. Yeah. I suppose.
But it also reopens betting.
Exactly.
So like maybe you have some 4-bets here in a weird way.
Right. Totally agree with that. So yeah, it felt a little weird and non-sizey, and I felt really confident about my hand moving forward as just being a multi-street bluff catcher without too much of a problem. So obviously I continue through a call. Turn is Jin, and we find the Jack of Hearts.
It's Jin.
Hello.
So now we're at an SPR of a little over 5. I choose to check again. He's going to bet like 70-ish% pot, 3,300 into 46. And I hit him with the double check raise.
Oh, the old double check raise.
I felt pretty good about my size. This is basically 2E, or slightly smaller than 2E, I think. It leaves about 85% pot going into the river, I believe.
That's got to be way smaller than 2E.
You're only making I'm only making it 5K more. Yeah, so I'm only making it third pot. So maybe like half pot would have been 2E, which perhaps would be better. I guess I didn't really think this through too much.
Actually, that's like a third pot.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You said third pot.
You did what I do a lot, which is like accidentally undersizing the turn and leaving too much behind on the river, I think you probably have to go a little bigger.
Well, I was only thinking about in terms of my bluffs. So I was thinking about in terms of like what hands I would check raise bluff here. And I came to the conclusion that it would be whatever, like 9-10, Queen 10, and then, maybe like
the deuce X of hearts.
Yeah, 2X of hearts and things like that. And I wanted to size in a way where it didn't force jams. Like I guess I wanted to leave call as an option. Because I think it's kind of a catastrophe if you're check raise folding Queen 10 of hearts.
Yeah.
Which maybe that hand I wouldn't check raise, I guess, because you're just too susceptible to running into King X of hearts and getting fucked.
Yeah.
But maybe a hand like 9-10 of hearts I would check raise, and now I'm like just in an awkward spot where I have to call off for 80% pot or
the
possibly fold.
Weird thing about this spot based on the flop 3-bet to me is I don't really know if you're actually supposed to have any check. Because my initial instinct was his size on turn is too small.
Yeah.
And that his range is really polar to the point where he just wants to go 2E. But he didn't 2E. And I feel like the counter to that might be that we just no longer have to care about check raising and we just play call or fold. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So that thought also crossed my mind. And what I came to the conclusion of was this was a bet to check down. And I think that happens in the live realm a lot.
Yeah. I could see that with like aces.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. It was aces, ace, king, just trying to check down, not concerned enough about the jack. or the fact that I could still retain traps from the flop.
Yeah.
And doesn't want to face the jams on the river. Or I guess not jams, but like big over bets, right? Because if he checks back the turn, I'm probably going to be playing something like 200% pot on the end with some of my range, and then maybe like either block or check with the rest. But anyway, we're making a lot of assumptions, I guess, at this point. It again just felt like a non-size. I agree with you. I think like the only size here is overbet or check back. Like you've just gone out of your way to polarize your range, and you probably shouldn't have a lot of one pairs at this point any longer. So yeah,
or at the very least, the bluffs that he has are really weak bluffs.
Correct.
Like he doesn't have very many draws here.
Yeah, like 7 deuces in play. We're obviously playing the bounty game.
I definitely feel like that matters.
Right. And that feels like a really good hand to like bet 3-bet click on the flop and then follow through on a Broadway turn.
Yeah. But look good.
But he calls. So now this is kind of the issue that I run into when the ace of clubs rolls off on the river. I think about it a little bit and I'm just like, well, when I check raise the turn, he's now basically devoid of bluffs. Like he had hands with equity that would bet call 9-10, queen 10. I don't know how much 9-10 exists. I don't even know how much queen 10 exists.
Yeah, there's like this is a crazy spot because like this is like the absolute worst card.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. I think a heart is even fine given that we have the king of hearts.
Yeah.
Like it's just a non-issue, right? So this card rolls off and I'm just kind of like, well, I don't know what to do now. I just didn't foresee that card coming.
It was a possibility.
Right. But it's the only card in the deck that's bad for us.
Yeah.
And 8, I guess, isn't great because we lose the aces now, but we still beat ace king. So it's just kind of like whatever.
Yeah. Like even an 8 or a deuce is, they're just,
they're not great.
Annoying, but like not.
But like whatever, it's 80% pot. We're still either going to be all in by jamming ourselves or by check calling off.
Right. Now we lose to ace 8 of diamonds.
Right. We lose to
or ace 8 of hearts.
No, the heart's out there.
Ace deuce of
hearts.
Ace deuce of hearts.
We lose the ace deuce of hearts. We lose the ace king. We lose to queen 10.
Aces.
We still lose to aces, or we lose the aces now. We still lose the kings and jacks, if jacks ever exist. We're chopping with king jack, but there should only be one suited combo. He opens offsuit from there, so I guess that's not really an issue. But would king jack jam when we check? That's kind of the question. So I basically landed on like, I don't know what the fuck I beat. I don't really know how else to play this river. I'm not just going to YOLO it in here and just get snapped off by better. I'm going to check and I'm going to assume that he's going to check down a lot.
Nope.
He piles it right in my face.
Yeah, you're not going to get a nice, easy river there, Burke.
Does ace X of hearts ever do this?
It kind of, I was thinking in real time, it's like, it kind of has to.
That's what I think.
Right? Like,
what else is it going to do? Like ace 10 of
the problem I arrived at is, how do these fucking hands get to the river after
shouldn't they have exited at some point?
After 3-betting the flop?
I mean,
right? Like, I was like, maybe it's ace queen, but like ace queen almost feels too strong to jam on the end.
Yeah. Well, we know what Guapo wants you to do.
It's like ace 10 of hearts, I guess. These would be good ones. But like now I'm counting single combinations of potential bluffs.
I would just fucking reach.
And they include top pair.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, like 2 combinations of ace X of hearts.
This is going to be wild when we look at the sim because I don't even know what his flop click back range is supposed to look like. So when you add in the bet a weird size, call a check raise on the turn, like what can he possibly get here with other than aces, ace king, or some kind of like a hand that already had a set or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I just don't see how he can ever find a bluff here because the bluffs that he's supposed to find are going to be so weird. And it would just be, it might be like he's supposed to take this line with like, I don't know, like queen 8 or something. Like,
right.
But then how can he call the turn check raise with queen 8? Like there's just so many spots where you're like, he could have this hand, but then that doesn't make sense.
That's the thing.
Maybe he has Jack 8. Maybe he has Jack 8 of hearts. Now he's turning into a bluff.
Nope.
Or Jack 8 of spades. He's turning into a bluff.
That's kind of the thing that I arrived at is there are these tiny little pockets in poker hand histories where every now and again a specific card can fall that just cripples your opponent's range because you're already so tight when you get there. So any other card in the deck, probably even including the ace of hearts, but maybe not necessarily. But basically, any card that's not an ace, he will retain a full range of hands that have value hands that we beat, bluffs that we beat, and value that we lose to, right? So he'll have a complete range on literally everything from a deuce to a king. But when the ace specifically falls, on that exact card, all of his nothing that should have bet called the turn becomes something.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just a matter of what that something is. Is it just top pair? Is it a straight? Is it two pair? Is it a set? You know what I mean? Like, but everything within his range in some capacity has improved. Like, if we assume that the bottom of his range on the turn is somehow 9-10, that's like the lone nothing, right?
Right.
The next tier would be like some sort of queen 10 or king queen. That was another
queen
hand.
9 of hearts, maybe, like.
Yeah, perhaps those hands
9,
exist.
7 of hearts.
Like
those,
we can reach really far and start to find a little bit of nothing that still exists, but it's not the same way that we could look at, a 7 falling. When a 7 falls, it's like, well, he has all this ace high hand, because when we 3-bet the flop, like, for sure, the overcard is going to take precedence over just about everything else, right? Because there's no straight draws available. There's no like obvious flop 3-bets when you're talking about non-value hands. So basically, I'm just like, okay, well, he could do this with king queen, but I don't know why the fuck he would bet. I don't know why he would 3-bet the flop and then bet the turn with king queen.
Right.
So I kind of dismissed that a little bit. I was like, okay.
The 3-bet click on the flop just destroys his range. Like, it's
right.
Well, it destroys our brain.
It destroys my brain.
That's what I mean.
what it
Like,
destroys.
Maybe he's doing it with a plan. Maybe he's just clicking buttons. Maybe I was fucked from the start and he just has kings or 8s or 2s. I don't know. And I won't know because I fucking folded.
Yeah.
And that is maybe the thing that made me so angry.
Yeah.
Is that I literally just like find a fold in a spot where under no circumstance, like I was so happy with the way I sized the turn because I was like, oh, he can still, call a little bit late here versus this size. And I'm just all in on all rivers. And I'm so proud of myself because I have top 2 and he's going to show me a set of 8s and I'm going to get the wine that I got fucking cooled off. Mm-hmm. But instead, I get jammed on.
But I think that's what you should be doing. Like when you're like, I didn't anticipate that card coming, right? It's just like now the absolute worst card comes, and it like allows you to now just check fold.
That's kind of the big thing is like
so bad, but it is the one card.
When I say I didn't assume that or I didn't think about that card coming, it's because I couldn't conceptualize a bad card falling.
Right.
It's like I don't want a heart to fall.
Right.
But if
every
a heart
other
falls,
one is fine.
Exactly. It's like I don't want a heart to fall, but if a heart falls, like que sera, sera, I don't care.
Yeah.
I have the king of hearts.
And you're like, when that card comes, you're like, oh, well,
I was like, oh,
there's
shit.
that one.
All the hands that I was just targeting to pay me off beat me.
Yeah.
Who is this player? Who is this against?
Why does it matter?
What type of player?
It was a reg. It wasn't Oaken.
Wouldn't know if it was Oaken.
Yeah, you would know if it was Oaken.
This is one of those spots where, because your strategy is so, like, it's so easy on so many rivers, it's a bit like when there's like 3 of one card on the board and you have some kind of a full house and then you're like feeling good about it and then the river suddenly puts quads on the board.
Right.
You're like, oh, I wasn't, what the fuck do I do now?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
I have pocket jacks on 6, 6, 6, 6, 4. And I'm like, do I value bet? Do I bluff to try to get a queen to fold? Like, what the hell do I do now? You know,
Yeah.
like that's the kind of spot you're in.
Yeah, that's precisely how it felt. So let me pose some questions here, I guess, first before we get the answers. What are your thoughts flop to river as far as like executing a double check raising strategy?
I think the thing you have to be mindful of, or the thing that, like, the spots where it makes sense are situations where your opponent is has enough of an understanding of your flop check raise strategy that they're going to have some hands which will call the check raise to bluff the turn. You're going to have to be deep enough that they're going to be able to do that, because quite often what you'll find is that if players are overfolding to the check raise in the first place and not floating the flop, then their flop range is heavily composed of either very strong value, which means when they bet the turn after you check raise the flop, they're just not folding, or they just want to check back the turn.
Well,
And
specifically in this instance, it's a byproduct of being 3-bet on the flop.
exactly. So in terms of a double check raise approach, like obviously most of the time you're not going to get 3-bet on the flop. So when you check raise the flop and you just get called, the only times you can really execute a double check raise are if you know your opponent is capable of floating the check raise, bluffing the turn, and then having some hands that have a tough spot against the second check raise.
Yeah, I'll openly admit, like, this is not a part of my strategy.
Sure.
I don't construct double check raise lines really ever, mainly because of depth. Like, I think like those lines are much more effective in MTTs where depth is relative, right? Like deep for an MTT is like 50 effective in an SPR of 10.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you can double check raise and be all in, and that's a really powerful play.
Yeah.
But in cash, it's just like, I can just overbet, right? And like, that just serves me so much better.
I think honestly, ultimately in MTTs, it works a little bit similarly. Like I really don't find myself doing it very much. And it's because of that tendency that people have of the check raise line is, it's probably overfolded enough that when you combine the overfold on the flop to the fact that people are checking back and not going for thin value, not really betting the turn a lot when check 2 after a check raise, you just don't get a lot of chances to do it. Like if you check raise flop and you get called, when you check the turn, it's gonna check back a lot. So I just find myself not necessarily taking the check raise check line very often, except for when I'm just kind of giving up for whatever reason, and I'm okay with being exploitable.
Yeah.
I think that there will be certain specific turn cards where, like with the exact right combo of hand, like sometimes when you turn 2 pair or something, and there's a bunch of draws on board, you can check jam on the turn or something. But it's really hard to find good spots for it in practice, simply because of that node of check raise flop call. You check the turn and then they bet. The range that they are going to be betting the turn with is usually going to be quite far away from a well-rounded range. So you're mostly going to have some option that makes more sense than double check raise, like in terms of betting the turn, check calling the turn, something like that.
Yeah. What about in instances like this though? And I think this speaks more to the last point that you made, that there will be some turn cards that call for this dynamic, because I do check raise check. I think that's a very important part of strategy. And oftentimes it's when a card is so favorable for the imposition player that you're almost relegated to a range check in spite of the fact that you polarize flop. And in that line, I can find a check raise check, a double check raise, but often you don't, because you need to protect your check raise check calls.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you just forego it. But in this instance, similarly, we fall into the double check raise because of the flop 3-bet and us improving.
Right. I think that's the weird part of this, that the flop 3-bet means that this becomes one of those spots where a specific hand like King Jack falls into the double check raise line, because the click back on the flop forces us to mostly play call or fold. And then the non-size on the turn, or the size down instead of go 2E on the turn, also then forces us to say, well, if we want to get stacks in with top of range, we now have to start raising some hands. Like if we check call there, which maybe the sim will say just play pure check call or check fold, but check calling there ends up in a situation where river SPR is high enough that, like you say, a lot of hands are just going to check back, take that showdown, and we're not going to get any extra value.
There are a lot more bad cards.
Yeah.
Right? So the function of check raising the turn is what narrows his range to where only the ace is bad.
Right.
But if you check call like a set of 8s on the turn, there are a myriad of terrible cards for you that improve him in a way that are going to give him straights, flushes, whatever the case may be, or even sometimes higher set, obviously the ace, but that are a bit problematic for your river strategy. So I do think that like I was thinking about it in real time. I was like, I would never double check raise King 8. Right? Like it's just too weak. Yeah. He improves on the jack too often, even if he's just clicking around.
So this is the bottom of it.
This is like the bare bottom. But I was like, I would always check. I would always forego a 4-bet on the flop with sets in order to double check raise the turn.
Yeah.
And I would have bluffs. Like this is a very easy card to find bluffs for us as the pre-flop defender. We're gonna have plenty of turn draws that aren't even combo draws, so like they function really well as a double check raise, like Queen 10 of spades or Queen 10 offsuit.
Stuff that like if you get jammed on, you don't care about folding.
Precisely. Queen 9 suited, that's going to be a good one. it doesn't have to be hearts. Like queen nine of spades is just like, oh, okay, like we're drawing a gutter to the nuts, check raise this. If it fails, so
like if you have queen nine of hearts, you might just call because the equity's too high.
It's kind of too high. Yeah, it feels pretty bad. But then again, you're also now playing this massive pot on the river with queen high where you can like never win. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how the solver constructs its turn check raise, if at all.
Yeah, the spots where you force the solver to use a size that's not what it wants to use, they definitely get pretty out there sometimes. Like I've ran spots where I expected to see one thing and saw completely the opposite. Yeah. So I'm curious what it's going to say.
Okay, let's run through the theory part of it first, because it's a different strategy than what was actually executed, so we can kind of see how this is supposed to look in a balanced sense. So he's supposed to bet quarter pot instead of 20%, whatever. That's not really a thing, or not really an issue. It does prefer the 3E size.
Oh, it wants to go massive.
Yeah, it just wants me to go straight 3E, and you can see that it doesn't go linear. King queen now becomes the cut.
10x check raise.
Yeah.
Is that 10x 26.1? Is that?
A little less, 20.1.
Oh, okay, I misread.
So yeah, now it's like a sliver of king queen, and then king queen suited with a backdoor, which we don't really have all that often. And then everything else is just like 2-pair plus, or kind of as we discussed before, hands that will wrap and block. So like whatever jack 10, jack 9s suited with backdoors we have, these become check raises. Same thing with 10-9. I probably didn't weight these correctly. 10-9 suited I probably wouldn't squeeze as often, but like jack 10 suited I would squeeze more. Queen 10,
I feel
queen
like
jack I would squeeze
those
more.
suited broadways should probably be lower frequency.
Yeah, I mean I know that I squeeze the kings more than anything else, but like still these should be lower frequencies. Anyway, it will take these hands that like wrap and block the king. So you can see that like diamonds and hearts are preferred here. It'll do the same with like 10-9, a little bit of 8x as Hunt mentioned. So like the queen 8, I think we landed on that one where it makes sense. You kind of have like an over to middle pair.
8-7 and 8-6 in.
Right. Yeah. So these are going to be the ones with the backdoor straight, backdoor flush draws.
Well, they're not backdoor straight, but they.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be those are the ones with and this is a fairly common thing as well, like a kicker that's not an overcard, because an overcard kicker means your hand is going to realize equity a little better. So like 9-8 is going to realize equity a little better than 8-7 through the check call. So 8-7 becomes a little bit more of a hand where like if you check raise to this massive size, you can now make a better 8 fold. That's really good.
Yeah, so it's actually like the 9-7, 7-6, 6-5s. These are the backdoor straight, backdoor flush draws.
Yeah,
the 3-2s. So it's not really picking much 8 deuce. It's picking the weakest, or sorry, deuce X. It's picking the weakest ones.
Just the low card ones. That makes sense. I mean, for this massive size,
it kind of surprises me a little bit though, because I would think that you would want to unblock his clear folds, which would be like the suited will aces.
Well, those hands may not be pure bet.
No, everything's a range bet.
Oh, it's range betting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's lit up.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it's you know what it is. I think it's to do with implied odds on turns. When you check raise like 6 deuce, 5 deuce, 4 deuce, 3 deuce, and you turn 2 pair, it's completely clean.
That makes sense.
When you check raise like queen deuce, it's really
dirty.
not clean. Yeah, exactly.
That makes a ton of sense.
That I expect is probably what's going on there.
Yeah, and these also probably just like have the least amount of showdown value, so like they yeet it off.
And you also
clean.
like when you turn a deuce, you unblock all the king X. Like you unblock all the stuff that can call the turn.
Right.
Whereas when you have queen deuce, you turn block king queen.
Right. It's also very specific. It's not choosing ones without the backdoor flush draws either.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Like having the deuce of hearts here is very important, because now he's not peeling ace deuce of hearts.
Exactly.
That type of stuff. Okay. So when we go for the big size, he probably doesn't play 3-bet here ever, I would imagine. But let's see.
That's big size, you might.
No, never.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the sim just kind of breaks here. We can go into more of a locked version now. Okay, so I adjusted for him to bet 20% pot instead of 25. Doesn't change anything. Obviously, still pure range bet. For the smaller size that I chose, we get to check raise a little bit more frequently. Now it's 6.5% compared to.
That's still lower than I would expect.
Same.
6.5%.
Same facing range. I think it's because his opening range is maybe a little bit tighter.
I also think it's just a function of depth, where like you're so deep that the range of hands that gets it in is like sets, and that's it.
Right.
And he has more sets than you.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit harder for you to actually play aggro lines overall.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. We can see now for this size, though, I do get to check raise a hell of a lot more linearly. So still leaning on the same general region for our bluffs. Jack 10, Jack 9, 10, 9. Queen 8 just goes up in frequency, as does 8, 7, 8, 6. Still pulling from the 9, 7, 7, 6, 6, 5 type of region. But now we get to add a ton more value. So you can see like all the King X down to King 9 is check raising some. And then it comes back into play at like King 5, King 4. The suited variety, same thing. The backdoor flushes are obviously just like worth a lot. So leaning much more on like King X of hearts, King X of diamonds for these backdoor flush. A little bit of the suited wheel aces get in there, just wrapping that deuce and having backdoor nut flush draws. Those are very important. The ace 8 does some more raising. So like we add in a little bit more of the 8X. The ace 8 I don't think was raising at all for the polar size. And then again, we have like the Queen 10, which wasn't really in there prior. So this is obviously going to afford us more hands when we go into those dynamic turn cards like the Jack of Hearts. His raise size here was supposed to be 75% pot. I changed it to the actual size chosen, and you can see that it's very rare. It still only comes through 5.5% of the time.
That's more than I expected.
Yeah, that's fair. Too. That is fair. He's also quite linear. So he's down to Queen 9 suited. I assume that those are all backdoors. He is bluffing a little bit with the same region that we're pucking from. So the 10, 9, 10, 8s, the Queen 10 suiteds, Queen Jacks. These are all getting a little bit of 3 bets in there. 7 deuce.
He does have those hands.
Yeah, the 7 deuce, ace deuce are the highest frequency 3-bet bluffs, call it. Ace 8, also pretty high frequency by comparison to everything else. 8, 6, 9, 7, pretty high frequency. So yeah, I mean, his range of hands is kind of what we expect it to be. No aces though. Very important. Just a tiny little sliver, tiny little sliver, which is good enough to get it through to the river.
Are you gonna lock this to increase that frequency, or are you just gonna keep it as it is?
I think we could increase it. That's probably fine.
Because I was gonna say with such a small frequency, like that, it's gonna make the later streets kind of weird. I think maybe upping it to like 10% or something. Probably.
Yeah. Whoops.
Assume that he's doing it slightly more than he should.
Right. 0 fold.
You can just go.
Honestly, though, like
if you go to set frequencies.
I feel like 10 is so low.
Where if you go to the frequencies instead of locking the combos, you can put raise 18 on like whatever percent you want, and it'll choose the hands for you.
Oh, I thought it's yeah, but it's not. It's not gonna like weight towards aces. Like
no, but it does them. It does them in order of EV. So
right. So aces is still gonna be last.
Right. So you can lock that separately if you want. But I'm just saying, like, if you
wait,
just
why
want
isn't it changing at all?
It is. It just changed.
Oh.
It's now, you can see it's like higher.
Oh, I can just keep looking at aces.
Oh, well, basically what that's telling you is that aces is one of the worst hands to 3-bet the flop with.
Right.
It's going to do it according to the EV. So it's going to keep adding hands in according to what the EV of 3-betting is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I imagine that we could probably set aces at being slightly higher.
Yeah, you can lock it at like 50-50 or something. That's probably fine. Ace King as well, maybe.
Yeah. Ace King, we got it up there pretty high.
Yeah, that's at like 30.
Whoops. There's 125%. And then the rest call. There we go. Okay, so yeah, let's get Ace King and aces up a little bit because I imagine those are the most natural ones that he would gravitate towards. And then we'll lock it out a little bit. So assuming he's clicking here about 20% of the time, which is incredibly aggressive and probably not. I don't know. These frequencies are pretty.
It's only 7.5.
So what it's done is it's decreased it to compensate for the fact that you told it has to
lock.
You didn't lock all the hands.
Right.
You just locked aces and ace king. So
I see.
This is actually not bad though, because what this is doing is it's saying we know that aces and ace king are clicking back a fair amount, but we don't know the rest of the range. So you've kind of compensated for a range that's a little bit heavier on aces and ace king by reducing some other combos, and I think this works fairly well.
Yeah, I think this works pretty well because it's putting a big highlight on the sets, which are obviously the natural value.
I think this is a pretty reasonable range to go with, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we have him clicking it here. I imagine we play pure call. Oh, we don't.
Oh, we play some clicks.
Jesus.
Oh, we're out there in the streets.
So, let's go.
In the streets with those 4-bet
Click it
clicks
back.
on the flop.
Clicking more.
I wouldn't find any of these. it's just a ton of 8x. Like I would not find these 8x clicks.
Maybe reduce your strategy, like get rid of the click in your strategy, then just like make it call or fold.
Yeah,
this is how people played online in 2006.
Lead the all in the raise.
Yeah, I just wouldn't. I don't think I would 4-bet here. It just seems like a net negative. I don't want fold equity when I have sets, and I'm not going to bluff enough for sure. So let's continue through with a call. Turn is going to be the Jack of Hearts. Let's see how viable a check raising strategy is.
We have some donks. I think we might have some donks.
Really? Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, okay. Yeah, the only reason I say we might is because when we restrict ourselves from clicking back on the flop,
and we're just going to lead more.
We now have, we have more nut hands than what the solver previously wanted, so it's gonna slightly start to compensate by donking some turns. Not very much.
Not going to find those.
Not going to find those at all.
Okay, so yeah, your instinct was correct. Oh, he does play 2 size here. Interesting. His size is real.
Oh, I didn't even see the.
Look at that.
So we've got he plays 2E and
that's interesting. B67. I mean, he went slightly
there's nothing
high.
that. Interestingly, there's nothing that prefers 67 though. It just kind of mixes.
10-9 suited. That's it.
Yeah, that's the only hand that's not betting 2E.
Yeah.
Can't even see from my angle.
King 10 suited, King Queen suited. I mean, it's the linear hands, right?
Yeah.
It's the ones that are like justifiably maybe too thin to even bet.
So how many combos is it total? Like 4? I can't see there.
Where are you looking?
Where it says 13.2%. How many combos is it?
It's 4.
Okay, yeah. So it's a very small range overall.
Right. Very small, very linear in nature, very much not nutted. It's like forcing some of the nutted hands like pocket 8s to have a small frequency.
What
here.
if we give him only the
small size?
Small size, or the size that he actually used?
Yeah, I think that's fair. So his total bet frequency prior was like 42%. It goes up a little bit now. It's about 46%. But yeah, you can see like
he's got the 10-9 of hearts.
He really only wants to be betting the combo variety, which is kind of interesting to me. I would have thought that the other 10-9s would serve him pretty well as bluffs. I guess he just like wants to realize this is kind of a byproduct of position, right?
Yeah.
Like you just want to realize these hands. Same thing with like the ace queen. Ace queen just like doesn't bet here, which is interesting to me because that was one of the hands I was fearful of. Ace 10. Okay, ace 10's a lot more aggressive. This could be one of the ones he lands on. Ace 10 of diamonds, pure bet. Ace 10 of hearts, nearly a pure bet. Ace 10 of clubs is doing some checking. And then, of course, like ace deuce, just rifling it off. Does not care.
Ace deuce is just the rifle hand.
Yep.
He also needs to find like 3s, 4s, 6s here some of the time.
Yeah, people just don't find
those are probably not there.
No
like pocket 7s is a pure bet. Like don't think that's really in range.
3-bet click the flop with 7s and then just bet the turn.
Yeah, more realistically, we're looking at like the 7 deuce, the ace deuce, and then I guess like the natural combo draws, like whatever queen 10 he lands here with, whatever 10-9 he lands here with. I'm not sure how much credit to give like the 10-8s, 9-7s.
I'm actually a little surprised that it's taking the 6s, 4s, 3s, which are like the pure unblockers with 2 outs. I'm surprised that it's taking those instead of the 10s and 9s, which were gonna like double block your draws, double block the river straights. Like I thought it would take 10s and 9s and just turn them into bluffs to get a king to fold. But I
imagine that 10s and 9s just beat an 8.
Yeah,
they
just probably have too much showdown value.
Yeah, like I'm just so 8 dense that they probably just win enough, and they're drawing clean.
Look at how suit specific it is as well with certain combos. Like
that makes
6s. Like it's so weird. How could you possibly know that 6s with the heart is supposed to pure bet, and then 6s with the other hands like are just supposed to pure check? Like when you get here with 6s, it's hard enough to even think about betting them.
Well, no, this makes a lot of sense actually, because
it makes sense
to get here with 6s, you already had to be suit specific, so you had to self-select the 6s with a club, because now it doesn't block any of our auto folds.
Okay, there's like a light in the way of the screen for me a little bit. I couldn't see exactly which combos were in there and which ones weren't.
Right,
so that makes more sense.
So you self-select already on the flop the ones that contain a club because it doesn't block auto folds.
Right.
And then when you land on turn, you have to have the heart so that you're drawing clean. So you have one combo.
One exact combo of pocket 6s.
Right. Wow. It's a fun little nugget to land on, and people who are like really sharp and quick in real time can come up with this type of stuff. But like, you know, you have to have some sort of experience in 3-bet clicking flops to begin with in order to start to construct this way.
And who even has that?
All right. Well, you fuck around, you find out. So he does go for the 72% bet. We now get to play some raise, and King Jack is in there.
Okay.
We see that the suited variety actually pure calls, which I guess because it's only
this
diamonds.
Is something that I see so much of, and I never understand it. There's so many spots where offsuit hands will play. Like the offsuit version of a hand will play differently than the suited version, even when there's no obvious difference in blocking properties. And I can never, it's always some obscure thing.
I think the obvious thing here is that we have the Jack of Clubs. So he shouldn't have any hands that possess the Jack of Clubs in a click.
Right. That makes sense. I guess I
know what you're saying though. We had a debate. I wish you would have been here for it.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day. It was something about 8-7 of hearts on the end. I'd rivered 2 pair, or sorry, I turned 2 pair and decided to play trap with it on a Jack 8 brick 7 turn or 9-10 completed. And I check called a larger bet on the turn, and then he non-sized river, and I chose to jam. And in the solve, there was something specific about the 8 of hearts that just played call on the end instead of jam. And we couldn't really land on any reason because there was no 8 of hearts in his bet call off range.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with like blocking or unblocking the way that his strategy morphed.
And sometimes you look at the blocker scores and they're the same.
Right.
You're like, what does that mean? Like,
yeah.
And my suspicion is that what's happening is that there's actually, because the blocker scores are value and trash, but sometimes there's blocking the middle actually matters because you're unblocking some stuff and unblocking other stuff. So like theoretically we need an unblocker score as well as a blocker score. And it's like, there's so many
it's
micro
so in the
level
weeds
things.
though. Like
Exactly.
that's really not ever going to be.
I just think it's interesting that like quite often you'll have a spot where the suited versions of a hand will raise a lot and the offsuit versions will call a lot, and you just don't know why until you really dig into it and say, oh, we need to have this combo, we need to have this card in our hand.
Right. So interesting enough, I didn't even notice this till just now, but I'm only supposed to play a pure click.
Wow.
Oh, that's fun.
So dead click from 3,300 to 6,600, and then leave, like potish behind.
If we up your size to what you actually used, does it then stop you? Like, does it then prefer to just play call or fold?
I would imagine no, because the size increase wasn't that much. It only ups it from 29% to 42%.
Yeah, because he made it like 35.
Yeah,
he made
okay,
it 8K.
so we're still playing some, but like
it reduces it a little bit.
Such a small range of hands now. It's like 1 point something combos.
Yeah.
This is where we're in the weeds.
It's still roughly. I mean, it's 5.5% instead of 7. But yeah, it's interesting to see that it's pulling the bluffs from where I expected it to, at least. I was fearful that like 10-9 would not check raise. You were correct. That's true. Same with Queen 10. They just can't stomach getting jammed on. It actually leans on the jack.
Yeah, the jack blocker makes sense.
Yeah.
Turning a jack doesn't win you the pot enough, but it blocks king jack.
Yeah,
so,
blocking the 2 pairs, blocking the set.
And I didn't think about this, but we have like some like, I probably wouldn't have found these in real time, but we have like some of these like bad 2x of heart draws, like 3-2 of hearts.
Oh yeah, those are nice. Set blocker, the set blocker with a draw.
Yeah, and then like king 5 of hearts is another one.
Oh, just turning a king into a bluff. That's wild.
Well, it's the nut or a second nut flush draw also.
Right, but it's like you would think that would.
It can call off. It can call off is why. Queen 10 of hearts can't call off.
Imagine that. Imagine you just check raise call off with king 5 of hearts here, and your opponent's like, "What are you doing, bro?" Like,
I mean. It makes a lot of logical sense though, because in these situations where you are calling out a position with hands that are weakish and you turn improved equity, like you pick up a draw, like that's why I gravitated towards 9-10 Queen 10. You can't land on river with no showdown value,
right?
And effectively King 5 facing double barrel won't have much showdown value.
Yeah, I mean it definitely makes a lot of sense. It's just funny to imagine how people would react to seeing that. And you're like, it's GTO, bro. Come on, don't get at me. Like,
yeah.
It's GTO to get it in with King 5 of hearts here. Yeah.
It's just basically that it can call off because it has enough showdown value, but if it can't bluff catch river because of the hearts property.
Right.
So it kind of ruins it in that regard.
Like, well, we're bluffing.
Okay, so we do go for the check raise. He plays a lot more jams than I would have expected.
That is much more jams.
Way more jams than I would have expected. Ace deuce, just ripping it. He does play pure call with aces. He plays mostly call with ace king. Ace king folds some. That's crazy. No one's ever bet folding ace king to me. We can lock. I can assure you, we can lock that to
it might
pure
have
call.
something. Oh no, you're not check raising queen 10, are you? Like,
No.
so weird.
Yeah, we can just.
We're really into the weeds now.
I can promise you that hand
we're
is
down the rabbit hole.
just not folding.
King queen even.
I mean, king queen makes sense.
More sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, especially because logically you would be blocking some of my bluffs. Like if I have queen 10 of diamonds.
What's like the bottom of his?
Looks like
if you go to filters, this is the way I like to do it. If you go to filters and then you just look at where the thresholds are. So like his top pair, for example, is like folding half the time.
Yeah.
His under pair is calling a lot. Which under pair is that? Is that?
Looks like it is.
Where is that? I don't even.
Yeah, I don't. It must be some.
If you click on it, it'll show you what it is. If you click on that.
Oh, will it?
It should. It normally does.
It's there, but it's 0%.
It's there, but it's not there. Okay, so maybe we just ignore that then.
Yeah.
What about the low pair? That must be like deuce X of hearts. Or
it's
something.
7 deuce some.
7 deuce of hearts. Okay.
No. Oh yeah. 7 deuce of hearts. Ace deuce of hearts, I assume also.
Okay.
Yeah, ace deuce of hearts is mixing call and raise.
Yeah.
Or call and jam, I guess.
Yeah, we're way in the weeds. This is a really tiny range.
But yeah, that's why we land on the river decision that we do, right?
Yep.
Because now when the ace of clubs rolls off, like, what the fuck he got? Okay, so we're somehow mixing 3 sizes here, which is insane. Definitely.
Where are we mixing donk jams?
Well, it's not a donk. We check raised.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah, sorry, yeah, just.
But yeah, we're mixing 40, 67, and all in. We would only be playing all in.
I was gonna say like whether I was thinking at the time when we first looked at it whether there was any way that we could like block the river, but then it just doesn't make like what.
We're too. I think we're just too shallow.
Well, I think I don't think we're necessarily too shallow. I think you just like what hands in his range have a tough spot against that.
Right.
Like, he has some hands that might be mixing between call and raise, but like nothing is mixing call and fold. He's got no bluff catchers left, except for maybe like his ace 10 of hearts or something. Like that's not even low. That's not even high frequency.
Right. Yeah. So it looks like almost all of our king X is checking at a pretty high frequency, including king 8. That's playing, almost pure check if it's off, and about 75% check if it's suited. King 5 pure check. So the king 5 of hearts that's gotten here. And almost all of our ace X is just pure jamming. So even ace 3, the little bit of ace 3 of hearts that got here is just all in.
I think 8 deuce bluffing here.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't think that's value.
Yeah, I mean it's both are losing in theory. Very, very, very small.
He can't be calling with one pair.
Right.
Jam. So like 8 deuce has to be a bluff. Get like king 8 to fold.
Yeah, I mean if you look at the EVs of everything, the only thing really making money here is ace 8 suited and 8s. Ace 3 suited is making a tiny amount of EV. It's making like 11 big blinds.
Deuces is printing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Deuces is like where a bunch of your EV is coming from, because Deuces seems to be basically the only hand apart from 8 deuce that always plays this way.
Right. Precisely. But yeah, everything else is like rapidly approaching 0. King Jack is making like 9 big blinds. It's actually making less than ace 3, which is only 1 pair. So, we have a very clear check with our hand, which is nice. And when we look at where he is supposed to be, I mean, again, he's not going to play 2 sizes. I wish he would have. I would have loved to have faced quarter pot.
Did it want him to play? Well, I couldn't see what sizes it was. Like
67 and all in for 87.
Oh, yeah, no one does that.
It's just like
Solver.
Come on, Solver.
Okay, so his bluffs are 9-7,
7 deuce, and 9.
Yeah, 9-7, 7 deuce, which he did not table his hand, so I'm confident it was not 7 deuce.
The king 10, they're tiny freak bluff.
Yep. Which I expected that to be king queen actually,
the
which never lands here.
Ace 10.
Ace queen never lands here. The ace 10. I mean, these bluffs are like really non-existent, and he's not even supposed to jam ace king for value.
Yeah, it's just sets and straights.
I'm very confident he would jam ace king for value, for what it's worth. He also does jam king jack, which is interesting. I guess that's because I jam all my ace X. This is a strange one to me.
I mean, there's going to be.
I guess I fold king jack. He pushes me off a chop.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff going on. It might be a bluff. Like, it might honestly be folding out like ace deuce.
Yeah, it seems as though he's just jamming when he has the king of clubs, and what that probably leads to is me folding king jack at some frequency. So yeah, when he does jam, we mix.
There you go.
My hand specifically mixes. The other non-heart varieties.
You only
folds.
call with eights and deuces. Like your hand is your only actual bluff catcher here. It's your only mix.
Yep.
The rest of it just calls set.
Yeah.
It's because going into the river, a set was like a third of your range. Now once you check, a set is, I can't see what it is. It's like not much of your range, I guess.
3%.
I didn't even notice. You're only calling 6%. You're not even close to meeting MDF because it's not possible.
Because that's the worst fucking card in the deck.
It's not possible for you to play the earlier streets with a range that allows you to get to this street, to get to this card with enough bluff catchers. You would have to make a mistake on the earlier streets in order to allow yourself to bluff catch effectively.
And just to show the difference, if let's say
put a heart out there,
it's just a brick. The 3 of diamonds rolls off. We're just gonna be all in so often. So we're jamming a bunch. King jack mixes, like whatever. Let's assume we play check, and then we face the jam. Now I imagine we meet MDF no problem. Now we call half the time. Right. So like that's just that just demonstrates how much the strategy shifts whenever we land on river on a brick. Now all my king X, instead of jamming, is playing a mix of jam and check call based off of the available bluffs that he might have in position. Now I would probably just mostly be jamming range. I would probably simplify in that regard because I wouldn't expect him to have a ton of bluffs outside of 7 deuce. And it's like, well, now I'm reaching. So yeah, that was a complicated one. It had me in the fucking blender.
I think this is a good example of how board coverage is super important when you're deep, but there is such a thing as the cost of having perfect board coverage great enough that it's not actually that good of an idea, because it's more important for you to have a good strategy on the earlier street. Like, you don't have to cater to every single possible river. Like, you can't build your turn check raise here in a way that allows you to bluff catch on the ace river effectively. You just can't. Like, there's no way for you to do it, because every other river card is, you don't want to sacrifice profit on 47.
It would almost start back at pre. You would have to stop squeezing ace queen.
Exactly. You'd have to and the solver can do this, but it can only do it up to a point. You see this a lot in ICM sims as well, where the later you go into the tree, the more, like, eventually you reach a point where if a certain river card is like a tiny, tiny low frequency thing, sometimes it doesn't matter that much for you to have a perfect strategy on that river card, because the amount that you gain from that is less than the amount that you would lose on every other river card.
Right. And also, we could take a much more polar check raising strategy here, but I think that based off of how complex this sim proved to be and how much room there was to kind of freestyle the response, I like my chances setting up a tree like this where my opponents are going to be rather unstudied and are probably going to gravitate into certain tendencies, right? Like, we made some really strong assumptions here on the end to basically fold a hand that feels like it's damn near the absolute top of our range. And I feel confident about it. Like, I didn't in the time, but when he didn't table 7 deuce, like, I had my bounty out to pay. I'm just like, this is so fucking brutal, man. Like, when I get shown 7 deuce here, it's going to be the worst time that I've ever been shown 7 deuce. Like, I'm sacrificing a 40K pot and paying 300 on top of it because I'm an idiot.
I think it would be really interesting, and we obviously don't have time for this, but it'd be interesting to run a version of that where if you made the assumption that your opponent was playing 7 deuce in the aggressive line at full frequency, how does that alter your strategy? Because I think that alone would have quite a significant impact all through the tree. Like, I think
yes, for sure.
If you assume they click it back on flop at 100% frequency, they always bet it on turn, they always call the check raise.
I think what would happen is the ace no longer becomes a bad card, and only a deuce would become a bad card. So now when a deuce rolls off, we have like pure range check fold, with the exception of our sets. and very similar to the ace. And now when an ace rolls off, we're a lot less concerned because the vast majority of the concentration of bluffs falls into the 7 deuce.
Yeah, that would probably make a lot of sense.
I enjoy this. I hope that the viewers do too. Honestly, like this is something I would love to have more feedback on because
me on that graphic. Where am I?
We really get in the weeds. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna get you up there, Hunt. Don't you worry.
I always crack up at the picture of Nikki with a gun.
I was gonna say the thing is like the thing is that you're the coach. We're the ones in the muck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wait till after WSOP. I might be in the muck.
Hence the gun hunt.
Yeah.
If you guys would like to submit your own in the muck to us, please head over to our Discord channel. You can find that link at our Twitter at onlyfriends_pod. It's the pinned tweet, or you can hit hashtag Discord in the chat. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Give us some feedback on these like in the weed, in the mucks like this one. You know, sometimes we just go pretty quick. Today we really went down the rabbit hole, got deep into the nuance. Let us know if there's value to this, or if you'd prefer a much more simple approach of like check, call, check, fold, do things that are good and make money.
I can't wait for during the summer when you finally play a tournament and we get you to post an tournament in the muck.
Yeah, he's playing the first one. He said he's playing a full schedule this year.
I'm glad you say that, Hunt, because I will be absolutely peppering the chat with hand histories because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Nice. We got to have a separate WSOP hand history chat thing going on.
Yeah.
Because you guys have infinite numbers of group chats without me in them anyway, and I don't want to just use the podcast one for all my hands.
Yeah, that's
Please
fair.
do not.
I will not. I will not.
It's not like you read the shit anyway.
LeMan will have it muted anyway. It doesn't matter.
I won't have the WSOP hands one.
We got to get some tortoise hand
I'll be in
histories.
that one.
Sure.
We need the tortoise hand histories.
We do.
We'll be there.
Big shout out to GTO Wizard, as always, for providing us the sponsorship and the service with their AI. If you guys are interested, hit hashtag Wizard in the chat. Follow the affiliate link. That's going to do it for us today. Time tomorrow is to be determined. It's 80%. We're going to be at 6 p.m., 20% that we're going to be at the normal time. Just stay tuned to our socials. We'll put a message out either late tonight or early tomorrow morning.
Aces versus Kings.
That's right. You let us know which one you're rooting for. Thank you as always. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Peace.